A palace breathes through its chambers, spaces where power transfigures into texture, light, and lacquer. Versailles' royal apartments are not mere rooms, but tactile manifestos, a labyrinth of interlocked antechambers, cabinets, and alcoves where every fabric fold, gesso curl, and parquet groove conspires to elevate sovereignty into sensory liturgy. Les Chambres Royales, a journey through French palace opulence. Walls as dynastic skin, panels of bois de rose veneer, book-matched to mirror the Sun King's obsession with symmetry, rise to meet frescoed covings. Lemoyne's brushstrokes dissolve myth into materiality. Zeus's sinews rendered in lead-white impasto, his thunderbolts forged from vermeil leaf, pressed thin as rumor. Wainscoting sheathed in Le Mans linen, block printed with peonies and pomegranates, hums with the whisper of looms, threading diplomacy into domesticity. As you step into the opulent world of Versailles, let the whispers of history guide you through its opulent halls and chambers. Each intricate detail, from the gilded mirrors to the frescoed ceilings, is a testament to a legacy of craftsmanship and grandeur. To truly immerse yourself in this timeless journey, consider subscribing to Opulence, where we delve into the hidden stories and artistic mastery behind every corner of Versailles. Your support allows us to continue uncovering the secrets of these royal spaces, bringing their beauty and history to life for you. Join us in preserving and celebrating the allure of Versailles, one story at a time. Floors as silent chronicles, parquet de Versailles, and amber-toned chestnut fans outward in dendritic patterns, their joints mortised with beeswax emulsified with bergamot resin. Each quadrant, bordered by Toulouse ebony inlay, maps the cadence of courtly progressions, footsteps absorbed into grain as time into parchment. Ceilings of alchemy, vaults layered in stucco rocaille, gilded with Dulcian gold leaf cascade like frozen honey. Medallions, painted in grisaille to resemble cameos of Roman consuls, float amid trompe-l'oeil clouds, shaded with powdered azurite, a stratosphere where ambition and artifice converge. Light as subtext, bohemian crystal chandeliers, their arms curled as courtiers' bows, refract candle flame through prisms, cut to cast lappy-hued lozenges onto Aubusson carpets, woven with abstracted fleur-de-lis. Through Saint-Gobain lunettes, sunlight sieves into veils of pearlescent dust, gilding perfume vapors rising from Meissen urn censers, incense as visible protocol. Textiles as codices, lions' brocatelle drapes, dyed Pompeian red and weighted with Murano glass beads, frame alcoves upholstered in Utrecht velvet, tufted with bullion knots. Each thread, each tassel, each seam stitched with Flemish flax whispers that Bourbon authority resided not in edicts, but in the warp and weft of perception. Here, sovereignty is embroidered, lacquered, burnished, a creed written not in ink, but in material orchestration. To linger is to trace the syntax of absolute rule, a language spoken in patina, shadow, and fugitive gold. Versailles Hall of Mirrors, Versailles' luminous diplomacy in glass, gilt, and Saint-Gobain radiance. To walk this corridor is to traverse a corridor of light weaponized as soft power. Versailles Hall of Mirrors elevates reflection to statecraft, its 357 panes of Saint-Gobain glass, not merely surfaces, but instruments of choreographed awe. Walls clad in bourbon gold leaf ripple like molten hymnals, their arabesques echoed in Verde antique pilasters, fluted to fracture candle flame into constellations. Reflective walls as doctrine, each mirror, hand-cast with Normandy sand and powdered quartz, sits cradled in buhl marquetry frames of tortoiseshell and pewter. The glass, polished with chamois soaked in ammonium silver, projects visitors as multiplied phantom courts, a subtle arithmetic of perceived consensus. Ceiling as ideology, Lebrun's frescoes coil across barrel vaults in allegories of fiscal and martial restraint. Mars's shield morphs into a Sèvres porcelain salver overlaid with treaty clauses, rendered in grisaille to mimic marble inscriptions. Stucco tritons, their scales dusted with crushed malachite, blow conches dispersing incense, a veil of sanctity over earthly negotiation. Flooring as anchorage, parquet de Versailles in holm oak and Tuscan olive wood fans, outward in solar flares, their joints mortised with pine resin mixed with myrrh to mute footsteps. Borders inlaid with Antwerp ivory map the Rhine's course, a cartographic whisper of territorial tact. Light as protocol, baccarat chandeliers, their arms arched like swans' necks, drip candles of beeswax blended with crushed lapis. Prisms cast indigo rhomboids onto breccia medicea dados, staining dignitaries' robes in borrowed regality. At noon, sunlight angles through Cotignac alabaster lunettes, transfiguring the space into a hall of phantom heliographs, radiance as retinue. The treaty table, a slab of Lyonnais porphyry, veined with auriferous threads, rests on gilded caryatids, whose draped torsos twist under its weight. Surface inlaid with nacreous mother-of-pearl traces, the Franco-Dutch borders ratified here, their seams glowing like contusions under moonlight. This gallery is no vanity. It is a vivarium of luminous compulsion, a space where transparency bends to opacity, and every gleam, every reflection, every shadowless plane murmurs, Versailles' light does not illuminate, it compels. Diplomacy here is not brokered, it is refracted. Salon, Versailles' mythic grandeur in mosaic marble, frescoed valor, and appliqué gold. In this vaulted sanctuary of stone and story, mythology is not depicted, it is architected. The Salon d'Hercule translates divine endeavor into Bourbon vernacular. It surfaces a lexicon of mortal aspiration, clad in mineral splendor. Walls clad in Verona red marble, veined with gold-laced serpentine, ascend to a coved ceiling where time suspends mid-narrative. Walls of allegory, frescoes by Lemoyne, animate Hercules' trials as Bourbon parable. The hero's musculature, rendered in terre verte and lead tin yellows, shadows rippling with lapis lazuli undertones, mirrors the Sun King's own propagandized vigor. Marble pilasters, fluted with bouquetti friezes of gilded acanthus, frame niches holding busts of Roman emperors, their Carrara visages polished to a sheen that replicates sweat, a subtle nod to labor as regal virtue. Flooring as epic, parquetry de Hongrie in oak and bog oak spreads in concentric sunbursts, their knots aligned to draw eyes toward the Breton granite hearth. Artisans burnish joints with beeswax emulsified with amber dust, ensuring each plank whispered underfoot like parchment unspooling an epic. Ceiling of apotheosis, the cupola, a Versailles masterpiece, stages Hercules' ascension as celestial cartography. Constellations bloom in silver point against indigo-stained plaster, their asterisms plotted from Jesuit star charts, divinity rendered as both art and arithmetic. Pendentives bloom with stucco pomona fruits, their surfaces dusted with crushed mica to mimic dew, immortalizing fecundity in brittle medium. Furnishings as homage, Gobelin's tapestries, woven with Aubusson wool, dyed with madder root and woad, draped sloped settees tufted in Utrecht velvet. Armrests carved as lion paws clutch orb finials of Bohemian garnet, gemstones cleft to refract candlelight into arterial glints. Every seam, every stitch, codes triumph as inevitability. Light as mythographer, baccarat lustrous, their arms shaped as upturned torches, scatter prisms that fracture across Moravian mirror panels like Eurystheus' shattered final labor. Even the sconces conspire, ormolu branches tipped with opaline globes, mimic Hydra's severed necks, their flames flickering in eternal capture. Here, Versailles conflates heroism with hegemony. From marble's chromatic whispers to gilt's silent fanfare, the chamber declares that mortal glory is but a matter of fresco chemistry, a patina as delicate as authority. Salon de la Paix, Versailles Concorde, crafted in Carrara, chinoiserie, and aqueous silk, In this gilded crucible of détente, peace is not an ideal. It is a meticulously engineered ambience. The Salon de la Paix wears harmony as armor, each surface a testament to diplomacy's fragile alchemy. Walls clad in hué silk, dyed seafoam green and threaded with iridescent mother of pearl, ripple like tranquil lagoons beneath bohemian rock crystal sconces. Frescoes by Lebrun dissolve myth into metaphor. Flora scatters not blossoms, but treaty seals, while Apollo's lyre strings are tethered to dove-shaped clefts. Ceiling of equipoise. A coving of stucco laurels, gilded with honeyed 24-carat leaf, cradles a domed sky rendered in grisaille. The trompe-l'oeil clouds, shaded with powdered smalt and ground alabaster, hover in deliberate stasis, a meteorological allegory of negotiated calm. Flooring as dialogue. Parquetry de Versailles in maple and holly fans outward from a central medallion of Carrara lotus petals. Artisans soaked each slat in linseed oil blended with chamomile essence, releasing a herbal hush with every footfall. Borders inlaid with Toledo tin mirror the ceiling's laurels, grounding celestial aspirations in earthly craft. Furnishings as protocol. Settees upholstered in Lyon damask, their cabbage rose motifs overwoven with silver-gilt thread, slope backward to enforce upright posture. Dialogue as posture, not passion. Marquetry corner cabinets, veneered with tulip wood and harewood, display Sèvres vases glazed in sang-de-boeuf crimson, vessels too fragile for function, yet too vital to discard. Light as mediator. Chandeliers of mouscron crystal drip prisms shaped as teardrops, their facets indexed to diffuse light into crescents. Mirrors, foxed with deliberate age, reflect visitors as softened silhouettes, visages blurred into neutrality. Even the air conspires toward equanimity. Jasmine and ambrette smolder in bronze censers, their smoke filtered through silver gauze screens to mute potency. A space where every material, from gesso to gilt, whispers that concord is not born, but built, not inspired, but incised. Here, Versailles wears peace, not as virtue, but veneer, thin as varnish, resolute as stone. Sun King's War Chamber, Versailles' Bourbon diplomacy, cast in gilt, oak, and obsidian. In this vaulted sanctum, power wears no crown, it glints in marquetry. Louis XIV's council chamber breathes through the tension between shadow and filigree, its grandeur a lexicon of controlled revelation. Here, diplomacy is not debated, but materialized. Walls sheathed in argenton velvet so dense, Echoes suffocate before dissent takes form. The Table of Thresholds, a monolith of Saint-Germain oak, its surface inlaid with bull marquetry of silvered tortoiseshell and pewter. Cartouches depict twin wolves circling a Bourbon fleur-de-lis, not as adversaries, but partners in a cosmic minuet. Eboniste angled the legs inward, drawing eyes toward the king's seat, its crimson damask cushion tufted with bullion knots that prick idle fingers. Walls of alchemy, panels of boisé de rose, cut on the bias to deepen grain into tiger-stripe ferocity, frame Gobelin tapestries woven with silk thread storms. Storm clouds swirl with hidden threads of Saint Etienne gunmetal, catching candle flame as lightning. Beneath the wainscoting, mansard's heating grills ripple with heat from earthenware pipes, warmth unevenly dispensed to unsettle, not comfort. Light as arbiter, chandeliers of baccarat crystal, their arms shaped as inverted sabers, refract prisms across varied antique marble floors. Glass droplets, hand-blown with gold chloride streaks, scatter aureate pools at strategic intervals, zones where concessions were coaxed, illuminated by artifice. Ceiling of quietus, Lebrun's coffered dome, layered in gesso volutes, and 24-karat leaf, suspends a central oculus glazed with alabaster. Moonlight diffuses through its veined membrane, casting the king's documents in spectral clarity while obscuring advisors' faces, negotiation as chiaroscuro theater. Flooring as calculus, parquet of walnut and ebony laid in a Fibonacci spiral, compresses beneath the throne to audibly creak, a sonic ledger of shifting weight. Borders inset with pewter lozenges mark points where petitioners stood, their pressure imprinting temporary allegiance into wax-rubbed seams. This chamber is no war room. It is an engine of persuasion, a casket of tensions resolved through veneers, grain, and geometry. Every element, from foxed mirror placements to Genoa damask's warp and weft, reiterates a singular truth. Versailles' dominance lay not in armies, but in the quiet alchemy of surfaces. La Galerie de Bataille, Versailles' luminous ode to heritage in glass, velvet, and gilt. To cross this gallery is to traverse a prism of curated memory, a hall where light bends to honor, not conquer. 33 vaults ascend like alabaster palms cradling history, their plasterwork festooned with Cordoba leather leaf motifs, gilded to shimmer even under a moon's muted gaze. Versailles here does not shout triumph. It curates legacy through material poetry. Walls of narrative, Genoese velvet, dyed with indigo and weld, cloaks the arcade in twilight hues, a deliberate foil to the St. Louis glass mirrors lining opposing piers. Each pane, hand-blown with manganese to deflect glare, reflects visitors as if through a veil of time, softening edges into reverent anonymity. Parquet as patriotism, chevrons of ebony and sandalwood flow like heraldic rivers underfoot, their joints inlaid with buhl marquetry depicting olive branches. Artisans soaked planks in tung oil mingled with rosemary essence, ensuring each footfall released an herbaceous whisper, as if walking through gardens of remembrance. Ceiling of homage, Vernet's frescoes float not on myth, but material alchemy. Prussian blue skies blend with malachite-tinted glazes, their pigments bound in linseed to mimic Renaissance chiaroscuro. Bronze-cast eagles, clutching laurels and beaks, perch on cornices lined with pewter filigree, each feather chased to refract candlelight into constellations. Furnishings as reliquaries, mahogany pedestals crowned with Sèvres biscuit busts stand sentinel. Plinths carved with oak leaf volutes tilt figures forward, obliging guests to tilt chins upward, a silent choreography of respect. Tasseled drapes of Rouen brocatelle, weighted with Murano glass beads, sway to suppress echoes, preserving the sanctity of contemplation. Light as historian, lunette chandeliers, their arms shaped as sheaves of wheat, drip beeswax candles rolled with citronella and myrrh, scents evoking harvest and sanctity. Daylight filters through Chartres grisaille windows, casting muted gold upon savonnerie carpets woven with abstracted battle standards, their fierceness softened by wool's nap. Here, artistry tempers legacy. Every medium, glass, wood, wax, silk, serves not to incite, but to transmute memory into shared reverence. To depart is to carry the quiet truth. History, when enshrined in craft, becomes a dialogue between past and present, etched in amber and gilt. L'Orangerie Royale's veiled cruelty, Versailles' gilded Botanic Theatre, and the decor of Dominion. To mistrust beauty is to understand Versailles. In L'Orangerie, nature's wildness is collared by man's hunger for symmetry, a menagerie of citrus forced into gilded compliance. Here, decor does not adorn, it incarcerates. Trellises of torment, walnut ribs, fire bent over kilns stoked with Normandy applewood, cage Sicilian saplings into forms no tree would choose. Silk-lined lead planters, gilt with Baran arabesque, bleed mercury into soil, stunting roots to bonsai frailty. These are not trees, but topiaries trained to mimic obeisance, their leaves oiled with bergamot to perfume subservience. Walls of delusion, lunette windows glazed with Saint-Gobain's arsenic green glass warp sunlight into perpetual spring. Beneath marble flagstones, hippocausts smolder, heat seeping through grills cast as sunbursts, scalding souls to a courtier's mincing gait. Swags of Flemish Gracile pink velvet drape the arcade, their weighted hems sewn with lead beads to suppress drafts and dissent. Furnishings as sentinels, scroll-footed settees, upholstered in Utrecht samite threaded with gold wire briars, bite bare wrists. Sèvres cachepos, hand-painted with Watteau-esque fates, sprout jasmine wired to copper armatures, blooms dusted with powdered ambergris to tranquilize minds. Even the candelabras collude, beeswax tapers, dyed moss green to tint skin sallow, drip wax timed to maim ungloved hands. Light as captor, bohemian crystal pendants fracture flame into falcon shapes, their shadows swooping across parquet à la reine in predatory arabesque. Mirrored screens, angled to multiply reflections, splinter visages into 1,000 trembling shards, none whole enough to claim defiance. Hidden in rocaille moldings, clay pipes exhale somnolent vapors distilled from poppy milk and crushed orange zest. Nobles breathe lethargy, mistaking numbness for bliss. This is no conservatory. It is a vivarium of cultivated frailty, where every petal, every pane, every stitch of damask hisses the same truth. Versailles' luxury is not a gift, but a vice. To touch its beauty is to bleed. Pétale de Mémoire, Versailles' Bourbon craft as prelude to patina, and Otis etched in gesso. Time in Versailles is not erased, it is burnished. What lingers is not the echo of edicts, but the patina of process, gold leaf worn translucent by gloved caresses, parquet dented by centuries of healed deliberation, tapestries faded to spectral murmurs of their former opulence. Walls as epilogues, Verona marble panels, once polished to reflect ambition, now cloud with a milky haze, veils that soften regalia into reverie. Frescoes by Lebrun, their lead-tin yellows oxidized to umber, thaw Herculean allegories into twilight silhouettes. Silk damask, brittle as ancient parchment, flakes to reveal oak wainscoting scarred with graffiti of visiting envoys. Names etched not in defiance, but fragile kinship with oblivion. Floors as palimpsests, parquet de Versailles, its holly inlay blanched to bone, bears grooves where throne legs gouged crescentic pleas for permanence. Borders of Toulouse ebony, once sharply defined, blur into the grain like dusk dissolving a horizon. Light as ephemera, baccarat chandeliers, their prisms dulled by wood smoke and wax effluvia, cast diffused aureoles on grisaille medallions, portraits now eroded to anonymities. Through cracked Saint-Gobain panes, sunlight pools and liquid geometries, illuminating moats that drift like unmoored treaties. Textiles as elegies, lions, brocatelle drapes, their vermilion dyes faded to quince blush, hang in creased languor. Utrecht velvet cushions, deflated of their horsehair resolve, slump like retired heralds, bullion knots tarnished to the hue of forgotten coinage. Air as archivists, notes of neroli and ambergris, once pressed into wax seals, linger as vestigial breaths, an olfactory haunting of negotiations sealed and secrets surrendered. Versailles now is neither monument nor museum. It is an aria suspended mid-cadence, a clock paused between chimes. Its legacy resides not in what it retained, but in what it relinquished, the slow, inexorable surrender of splendor to time's gilded entropy. Here, grandeur is not conquered. It crumbles, gracefully, grain by grain, into the tacit understanding that all dominion is interim, but craft is alchemy. And alchemy outlives its architects.